Hello everyone, it's Red Saber here from Saber C++, and today we're going to be learning about how to make a catalog like this one for the 8BitCade XL. So you'll be able to upload your own games or other people's games onto the 8BitCade XL and switch through them using a menu just like this. Let's get started. First, let's download the Arduboy Python Utilities, which is a collection of tools that will help us turn our games into a fully functional catalog for our 8BitCade. We can download them by clicking this button here that says Code and selecting Download Zip. Once it's downloaded, we can open it up in our Downloads folder and hit the Extract All button. Now that we've extracted that, we can go ahead and open up the folder with the same name and the folder with the same name inside of that and see what we've got. As you can see, we have a bunch of these Python scripts here, a README file, which you may want to check out to learn about all of the other Python tools that we won't be covering in this video, and a couple of folders down here at the bottom. The most important of which is this example flashcards folder. Inside of this, we'll find another folder called example, and this contains a fully functional flashcard or game catalog, which we can compile and upload to our 8BitCade. Now, we'll be creating our own catalog based on our own games, but this tells us the format and makes it a lot easier to go ahead and create that. So the first thing I want to take a look at is this flashcard image.bin. Now, this is actually the compiled version of all of these different files here. So when we run this on a program on our own catalog, we'll get a flashcard image.bin, which we can upload to our 8BitCade in order to actually use the games. So I'll go ahead and throw that away, as it isn't needed. Then the first file here is this arduboyloader.png, and this is the cover that will be shown immediately as soon as the player turns on their 8BitCade console. And it just tells them that they can use the D-pad to move around between the different games and the buttons to actually play the games. Could of course replace this with a different image, and I'll show you how to do that later in the video. Then we have a whole collection of folders. Now, all of these, except for the category screens folder, follow the same format. They're each a category of games. So, for example, the arcade category, and each of them contains one or more games inside of them. Now, a game needs to have the .hex file, which is the actual code for running the game, and a PNG image, which is 128 by 64, because that's the size of the 8BitCade screen, in order to work. So it'll show this cover image when we're looking through all of the games, and it'll run the game file when we actually select a game. So here you can see we have 2 games and, of course, 4 files. It's similar for these other categories as well. For example, in the puzzle category, we have a hangman.hex and a hangman PNG, and a late.hex and a late.png, and the same for Minesweeper. The only folder that's an exception to this is this category screens folder, which holds the covers for each category. So when the player goes horizontally using the left and right buttons on the D-pad, they'll go through these categories. And when they go up or down, they'll actually go into a category and look at the different games inside of that category. The final file we need to take a look at is the flashcard index, which is a CSV file. Now, it might default to opening in Excel, but we can actually just open it in a text editor so it's easier to use. And inside of here, we see that all of these different files here are organized together so that when we run the program on this flashcard index file, it'll tell the program how to use all of the different images and hex files and folders in order to create an actual game catalog. So at the top here, we have a set of titles which tell us what each column does. So imagine the columns as being separated by these semicolons here. So the first column is the list column, and it just contains a number for which category this belongs to. So the 0th category is actually the Arduboy loader image that we see when we first turn on the console. And each of the other categories is one of these folders and one of these images here. And the flashcard index file organizes all of that information together in order to create the game catalog. For example, for the first item in the 1 category, it's the cover for the action games. So it's called action games, and the image is at category screens \action.png, as we can see in here. Then we have semicolons for all of the other columns, even though there's nothing in them. This is very important, as otherwise the Python program won't understand what we're doing. So we still have to have a semicolon for the hex file, the data file, the save file, the version, the developer, the info, and the likes, even though we don't actually have any of those things for this first screen. So now that we understand how the catalog is structured, let's actually build our own. But first, if this video has been helpful to you so far, please give it a like. Thanks. The first thing we want to do is turn the code files that we've created for our games into .hex files, because that's the only file type that our 8BitCade can actually understand. So if we open up one of those sketches in the Arduino IDE, for example, this Arduino 8BitCade Pong, which we created in a previous video, then we'll be able to compile it into a .hex format. What we're going to do is we're going to go up to Sketch, and then select Export Compiled Binary. And this will compile this .ini file and any associated files into a .hex binary. Now, it'll put that in the same directory as the sketch, so you could navigate there, or you can use this Show Sketch Folder button to go ahead and open up that sketch. Now, it's added this build folder, and inside of that, we'll find this folder with a long name, and then a bunch of different files, but we only actually need one, the 8bitcadepong.ini.hex. Now, don't go for the one that says with bootloader, because that will mess everything up. So I'm just going to rename this to simply be pong.hex. And there we go. Now let's head back over to our downloads folder, open up our Python utilities, and inside of our example flashcards folder, let's go ahead and duplicate this example flashcard. Then I'm going to rename this to Saber CPP Games, though you can rename it to whatever you want. And this will be our catalog with our games in it. So you could leave any of these games if you want to go ahead and try them out. But I'm going to delete all of them except for the action and arcade categories. And then I'll rename these categories to appropriate categories for our games. So I'd like to create a classics category, which is where Pong will go, and an endless category, which is where the endless coin collector will go. So inside of the classics folder, let's go ahead and delete the old game there, and then we can drag in our pong.hex file. Then in the endless category, let's go ahead and delete these old files, and then we'll open up our coin collector, compile it, and put it in here. So I've opened up our coin collector, and once again we'll go to Sketch, and then Export Compiled Binary. Once that's done, we'll go to Sketch, Show Sketch Folder to go ahead and open up our sketch, and we will be able to see the build folder. So we'll go ahead and open that up, open the folder inside it, rename this to coincollector.hex, and throw it in the endless folder. Now we also need covers for Pong and the coin collector and the two categories that we created. So let's delete all of these old colors and this template.xcf file and create our own. Now there are lots of different tools for how to create different pixel art things, and I've linked to a couple in the description if you want to check them out. But for now, I'll just go for simple text color covers, which I can create in Microsoft Paint. Now, inside of Microsoft Paint, we can use Control and scroll wheel to zoom in. Then let's go to Image Properties and set the width to 128 and the height to 64. And we'll also set the colors to black and white. It'll ask us to confirm, and we can go ahead and do that. Then we can simply select the text option and click down to create some text. First, I'm going to create the Pong cover, and I'll just drag this text box to cover the whole screen. And maybe center it on the y-axis as well as the x, and then we can adjust it to whatever size we want. And as you can see, when we click off of it, it's going to go ahead and pixelate it for us, which actually looks pretty decent. So I'll go to File, Save As, and select PNG Picture, and then we can go ahead and navigate through the Downloads folder into the Utilities folder, the Examples folder, the Saber CPP Games folder, and finally into the Classics folder, and then save this as Pong. Now, I'll simply do the same thing for the other game and for the category screens for both categories. Alright, so now I've created the two category screens for the Endless and Classics categories, a cover for Pong, and a cover for Coin Collector. The last thing we need to do before we can build our catalog is to change this all-important flashcard index file to actually reflect the changes we've made to the catalog. So I'm going to delete everything except for the first two lines that start with 1 and the first two lines that start with 2, as we only have two categories for the 1 and the 2, and one game inside of each. Then I'll rename the first category to Classics, I'll tell it that the cover is in category screens / classics.png, and then I'll put Pong inside of it. So it's named Pong. The image can be found in classics / pong.png, and the game file can be found in classics / pong.hex. Then the second category is called endless, and the file can be found in category screens endless.png. And of course, we have a game called Coin Collector. It's in the endless folder. PNG is called Coin Collector, and the hex file is also in the endless folder and also called Coin Collector. Alright, so now that we've updated our index file so it knows where everything is, we can actually build this. So in order to do that, I'm just going to open the downloads folder once again and go to our Python utilities, and I'm going to grab the flashcart builder and the flashcart writer. And I'll just go ahead and drag these two over into our catalog. You can also copy them so that you still have them over here. Now I'll right click and select Open in Terminal, which will open this folder in Terminal, and then we can run these scripts through the terminal. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to type Python, and this will check whether I have Python installed. And if I do, then it'll just go ahead and tell me the version and everything. And if you don't, then it'll actually just take you to the Microsoft Store where you can install it for free. It's very quick and very easy. Now that we have Python installed, we can run python-m pip install pillow. Now, pillow is a Python module that we'll need in order to run the Python scripts that we've downloaded. And as you can see, I already have it installed, so it's just telling me that I can update it if I want to, which we don't really need to. If you don't have it installed, then it'll just go ahead and install it. So now that we have everything installed, we can actually use the Python 3 to run flashcart-builder.py, which is this flashcart builder file over here. And we want to run it on the flashcart-index file. It's a .csv file that we have right here. And this will go ahead and build the .bin file for our game. And as you can see, I just have 2 games, so it took barely any time at all. But if you have more than 2 games, it might take some time. And if you get any errors, then most likely you'll want to check the flashcart index file to see if you made a mistake in there. But for me, as you can see, it's executed successfully, and we have the example flashcart cover, then we have the classics category with Pong inside, and the endless category with Coin Collector inside. So we have our .bin file, and the last thing we need to do is upload it to our 8BitCade. Once again, thanks to these wonderful Python utilities, as long as our 8BitCade is connected to our computer, we can go ahead and once again use Python 3 to this time run the flashcart-writer.py. And this time we'll be running it on this binary file here, which is called flashcart-image.bin, short for binary. And we'll go ahead and run that. Now, for me, as you can see, it says writing block 1 out of 1 because I have 2 games and they're very small, so it only takes up 1 block of storage space. For yours, it may say a substantially larger number of blocks if you have more games or larger games. Don't be worried about that, and if it takes a significantly longer amount of time, don't worry about that either. It does take a fair amount of time, even for just 1 block. So I'm going to go ahead and skip past all of that. Alright, and it's finally done, and as we can see, it took close to 45 minutes, so don't be alarmed if it takes a long time. It often does. And now your 8BitCade should be fully set up with all of your games in a nice catalog format. I hope you found this video helpful. Hit the subscribe button below so you can continue to master Arduino and programming. If you'd like to learn how to create one of the games shown in this video, check out the video on the right, or visit my channel on the left to learn about other Arduino sensors, modules, and programming. Thanks for watching.